Hello and welcome to this episode of The Gallery, a Premier Arts Collective podcast. Before we dive into our conversation with Chelsea Fraser, I first want to tell you about our upcoming event, Kaleidoscope. Kaleidoscope is PAC's annual immersive art experience and fundraiser, and we're so excited to be back on October 16th at Zen in Greenville, South Carolina. This event features live performances by Jared Emerson, Capital Christian music artist Jamie McDonald, an immersive art gallery that explores how art is language for the soul, and much more. We hope to see you there. To grab your tickets, go online to premierartscollective.com/kaleidoscope or check out the link in the show notes. And now I have the honor of introducing our guest for this episode of The Gallery, Chelsea Fraser. Chelsea is a wife, mother, poet, musician, and arts administrator of galleries, a performing arts center, and arts communities in Greenville, South Carolina. She has been published in Ekstasis Magazine, the Dewdrop, Vessels of Light Journal, Persephone Literary Magazine, and the Way Back to Ourselves Literary Journal. Her debut poetry collection, The Mother Tree, released this spring through Vine and Shoots Publishing. She has been a featured poet at Inkwell Creative Gatherings, and she is a dear friend of Premier Arts Collective. Let's dive into our conversation. Hello.
Well, hey, friend.
I'm so excited for this. You open your book, which is here. We have physical copies. Boom. You open your book with the quote or the statement that somebody made you that said, hey, you should write again. What was that like when you hear that?
Yeah.
And I want to know more about your writing before you stopped writing.
Yeah.
And then what was the cause for the pause, which you do kind of get into. I think I know what it's like when somebody says something and you're like, haha, that's funny. And then for whatever reason, mine was a 2-hour drive back from Columbia to Greenville.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I can't escape the Holy Spirit talking.
Right.
To me.
Right.
So,
right.
yeah. So what was that like?
Yeah. So I have been a sort of literarily minded person for my whole life. Big reader. I allude to this in the preface of the book, but my sister and I would do like radio dramas with a cassette tape, just like record these little, like, The Siberian Mission was the title of one of them. And there was something with huskies and with this, like, it was just nuts. And it was so much fun, but there was always like storytelling, and I would just immerse myself in stories over and over and over again. I have journals going all the way back to, like when I could write.
Do you still have them?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. And at least some of them. But in high school and in college, like I really caught the literary criticism, analysis, poetry sort of bug. And I don't think I realized I had caught it. Like our sophomore year in high school, one of our English projects was we had to build a poetry anthology and we had to contribute some poems to it. Favorite project ever. And we had to memorize poems in that class. And probably the poem that has stuck with me the longest, there are allusions to this poem in this book, is John Milton's Sonnet 20, which he wrote on his blindness. And I could quote it for you now, but essentially the part that has always stuck with me is that he's experiencing this significant limitation, and he doesn't know how to serve God anymore.
So he was not previously blind.
No, he went blind. He does not know how to serve God anymore. But like the psalmist, as he's kind of sitting in this space, he thinks on God. God does not need either man's strengths or his own gifts. They that best bear their mild yoke. I should have started from the beginning. They serve him best. His state is kingly. Thousands at his bidding speed and post o'er land and ocean without rest. And the last line, He says, they also serve who only stand and wait.
Hmm.
And that has stuck with me for decades now. Um, and so I got a literary degree in college, and I was writing all through college. And I grew up in a very performative, very artistic family,
Hmm.
and so I really had an orientation about myself that I was academic, that I was sort of uh, I'm an incredibly you have known me long. I'm a very performative person. I didn't see it at that point, and I
Mm.
didn't feel like I had permission. I felt like people had to invite me into this space
Hmm.
in order to be welcome in it. There was just a lot that I sort of in my circumstances at that time was invisible. And I'm a musician as well. I play the piano, I sing, I play the oboe. I was always in like musical groups, but again, never as a solo performer, never as something that I realized I needed
Hmm.
in my life. So, what ended up happening is as there were interruptions to kind of my individual personal writing and creating practice, they just stopped.
Hmm.
Like when I went to grad school and my writing was not as academic enough, not business voice enough,
Hmm.
rather than no, well, you also need a creative outlet. So like keep writing on the side.
Yeah.
That just got cut out. Rather, once I had less time and was spending a lot more time being a TA and studying and getting ready to get married and all of these things, um, I didn't realize that not being a part of musical groups
Hmm.
was actually like a missing piece. Um, Once I did get married, now all the time that I had spent in an evening on my own doing something, there's somebody else there. And I don't realize at the time that I need to protect that.
Hmm.
And so there were all of these things that had so much to do with how I viewed myself
Hmm.
and not what was actually present or what was actually good or what was actually a part of God's calling on my life that just really circumstantially um, drifted from me. So during the kind of 10 years that I really was not thinking about creative generation,
Hmm.
I finished my grad degree. I got married. I moved to Canada with my husband, who is Canadian. We lived there for a year. It was incredibly frustrating because we thought that that's where God wanted us to go, and all of the doors shut.
Hmm.
Every way was blocked. And God led us back to Greenville, where all the doors were open. But then we had to deal with my husband's immigration, and the birth of our first son, and then and I starting a new job, and it's in higher ed. So, there
Yeah.
were just all of these things that sort of perpetuated this absence from creativity. And none of them were bad. Some of them were very hard, but none of them were bad.
Yeah.
Um, what really called me back was honestly God himself.
Hmm.
Like I got to a point, I write a little bit about this in the preface. I got to a point where I knew couldn't work in the environment that I was anymore and be a mom of 3.
Yeah.
And it was post COVID with so many stressors. And um, I, I think that some of us feel a little bit cliche about how significant a disruption COVID was and how much it turned a lot of us. It can feel like an excuse. I don't think history is going to show that.
Yeah.
I think history is going to look back on this time and say, of course everything changed.
Yeah.
Of course everything changed because of this. And so
Yeah. Well said.
yeah, so I recognize I'm not unique in this. There are a lot of people who realized that they needed to change their job, or they needed to change their work-life balance, or they were
Or had it changed for them.
or they had it changed for them and they
Yeah.
couldn't get back to whatever so that's um that definitely is a factor in my story as well. My youngest son was born in December of 2019.
Hmm.
And so for all of 2020, I was working from home with and homeschooling a 5-year-old and child caring a 2-year-old and an infant. And by the end of that year, even though there was so much at the end of 2020 where we were trying to get back to some kind of a bridge to normal,
Yeah.
like I was not in a good place.
Mm.
Um, my my family has experienced. I have family members who have had severe mental depression and illness and different things, and so I really feel like the first calling back to writing was a calling to health and wholeness.
Mm.
That I was not living in a way that was taking care of who God made me to be and the people He'd put in my life,
Yeah.
these kids. Um, and I really just started looking for a different job. Couldn't quit right away. I couldn't just pull out entirely. But the job that God gave me, it wasn't even called fine arts director at the time. It was like an event manager.
Mm.
But they, but the at this church wanted to start an arts program, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds great!" Like, I liberal arts, like lit degree, grew up in a family of artists. I care so much about this. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's awesome. And it sort of turned into something that I don't know that anybody expected, but that God God had plans.
Yeah.
And so it was really in that soil of listening to the Spirit and saying yes, being willing to go when He said go, that that I heard that voice. It felt like it felt very clearly articulated. It wasn't like an audible voice, but I was sitting at my new desk, my new job in this new place, and I heard these words, "You need to start writing again."
Hmm.
And, it was surprising. It felt like it came out of nowhere. I was like, "Oh, yeah, I used to write."
Hmm.
And I, um, as I started doing that, there was a work that God was doing in me that really had to do with just being open to the Spirit and being open to the people around me about what the Spirit was talking to me about.
Hmm.
And so, while I started writing again, I started asking questions of other people who work in art and faith spaces who are also writers. How do you do this? And talking to different people, God reconnected, He really equipped me by giving me community, friends like you, friends who are poets, who've gotten MFAs. This was so not orchestrated by my vision, my drive, my discipline, my ability. And God just started putting people in my life who encouraged me to do things without consensus,
Hmm.
just because I was supposed to that being afraid of it might actually mean that I'm supposed to do it. A conversation with a friend who said that then went back to their home in a completely removed from me and drop shipped a book, The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield,
Hmm.
to me and was like, "Read this." And shout out to Luke Cleland. And like then my friend Wes Vanderlucht, who is Dr. Wes Vanderlucht, who teaches at Gordon Conwell, I was asking him some questions and he just said really matter of factly, you should submit.
Hmm.
You should just submit. Like even just once, if it's once or twice a year, you should just submit. And that also felt, I mean, I'm sure people have said that before. That's always an option that's been available to me. And
Right.
it's just all of a sudden the ground was prepared for it. And I had an experience that think I definitely believe to be spiritual. God speaking to me in that the first poem I ever submitted to any literary magazine was accepted.
Hmm.
Like, that seems incredibly strange. I've gotten so many rejections. Any writer who submits will tell you, like, it's mostly no.
Hmm.
It's just, it doesn't matter if you've written a book before, the next book might get a no. It might get lots of no's. Like, it's just, you're going to get a lot of no's. And so for God to have said, do this, and then shown me, yes, you can be
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Like, yes, this is something that you are allowed to do, where a place where you are welcome, where your words are able to be used.
Yeah.
Um, those were some of the first steps back in to not only any kind of regular personal writing practice, but really what it's become and what led to having a book.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me tell that very
Oh,
long
yeah,
story.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, gallery listeners, I want to take a quick pause in the episode and invite you to join our mission of using the arts as a vehicle of healing and hope. Your gift will directly support our therapeutic arts programs and our initiatives around the world. To financially partner with us, visit our website at premierartscollective.com/give and check out the link in the show notes. Here, you can give a one-time gift or become a member of the curated, our monthly giving community. Thank you so much. Okay, so if I'm getting my timeline right, then not only if there's a 10-year gap, 10-ish year gap between writing and not writing, marriage and children all happened in the not writing phase?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
pretty
then
much.
your book is called The Mother Tree. So obviously it has impacted a lot, but maybe get specific as like how has writing as a mother of 3 and a wife, looking through your book now and maybe looking back some of the writing before, I mean, what shifts do you see there or changes, and how has that impacted you?
So 2 of my kids were born early enough to spend time in the NICU, and they're both okay. And my NICU story is honestly like a best case scenario. Um, and my first pregnancy, while we didn't spend time in the NICU, I had an emergency surgery at 19 weeks and was on partial bed rest. And also that was during the crazy immigration journey that we were on, an international move, like all of that stacked. So I had incredibly complicated, again, not unique. Other people have complicated pregnancy and delivery stories, but I had very complicated stories. And when I look back on those, while I have very loving family and very supportive people in my life, like I do feel like I had to walk through them kind of white knuckled alone. Some of that's the circumstances of just like when Callum was born, it was in January and there was like a horrible cold and flu. And so they were restricting all access to any visitors to the NICU that were not a mom or dad. Like there's just, I have no blame for anybody. But when I look back, I really just survived those experiences and kept going.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly, something I've learned about myself is that that's probably been an MO and a coping mechanism for a really long time. So 3 years ago, a friend of mine, I'd already been writing. I'd already been writing about my kids. I had already been writing. They're delightful and beautiful, and it's when your children are young, there's something really magical about that. And I think especially people in our stage of life with little kids, we get told all the time, like, cherish the days, cherish the moments. I have enough morbidity in my head that I'm like, yeah, I know that this, like, things could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
And this is really precious. So for better or for worse, I have a little bit of that melancholic like lens when I'm watching my kids play or when I'm thinking about how wonderful their relationships are with one another right now and how grateful I am. So I was already writing about sort of where I was and what I was seeing. But my friend went into labor at 27 weeks and her son had significant complications in the NICU and almost died. And what started out as me relating to her, she quickly surpassed my experience, and it became something that I cannot fathom, for which I have great sympathy for, but I cannot fathom how hard that was. But I was shocked how triggered I was. There was a lot that I had endured that I had not processed. And so I started writing, thinking about my friend and what it feels like to be a mom who's just given birth to a child who is helpless and who you are incapable of helping.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing you want to do is help, and you can't.
Yeah.
And that started a series of words and thoughts that came out of me, that were a little bit more about what I had experienced. And then I was like, I've experienced more than just that, the marriage and the immigration and all of this stuff. And so some of that, I started actually dealing with it,
Yeah.
actually looking at it.
Yeah.
And some of it turned into poems. So yeah, I know a lot of artists will talk about how the relation between suffering and creating.
Yeah.
And as I love Premier Arts Collective and the use of art to help people process suffering and pain as a tool in their healing and as a means of providing hope, of making beauty from something that is broken. And I think you could sit any artist in this seat and ask them about any part of their work, and it's probably connected to something that hurt once upon a time.
Yeah.
Or that hurts right now, or that has healed over in really amazing ways, or that they have a lot of gratitude for because they've got a little bit of morbidity because of other things that they've experienced that give them an ability to look at the world through hopeful eyes.
Yeah.
That you can make something new, you can make something beautiful, you can say something true about really hard things. So, yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, this is a love letter to my family that I didn't know I was writing. In a lot of ways, it's a memoir that I didn't know I was writing about this stretch of years. And in a lot of other ways, it is my amazement with God that what he has made shows us hope.
Yeah.
It shows us him, that death brings life, that there's no endings that are truly an ending. And ultimately that in beyond ourselves, when we are going through the worst possible things, we don't know when they're going to end. Even if they end in the worst ways, it's not over.
Yeah.
And the ending of our story is the victory of Jesus and the redemption and the kingdom that is coming, that is assailing the gates of hell. The gates of hell are not assailing us.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot hold against the onslaught of the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
And so, I try not to be trite about that hope, but I think that it's a big enough hope that we can hold on to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a steady anchor.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
As an aside, daughter of trouble, mother of hope.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my faves.
Thank you.
It's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good one. So poets are artists, poets are creatives for sure. A different kind of creative in a way, because so going back to, if you said if you were to sit down with any artist, you could probably connect it to some sort of, suffering, tribulation. There's a really good passage in Romans about that, about it producing hope. Just a quick Romans plug. But, visual artists, outside of maybe realism, you can kind of mask some things, right? And even songwriting, you can sing some really, really sad songs in a major key.
Sure. I can think of a couple right now.
Yeah. Mine right now, I'm like, dang, is Kenny Chesney's Get Along. Just listen to the second verse of that song, and you're like, oh my gosh, if this wasn't like a up and country, like drink a beer, raise your glass type of country song, you'd be like, man, this could be really sad.
Let's weep together.
Poetry I mean, it can be blended with visual art, as evidences your work behind you. You know, you painted that frame and put your poem in there, but there's not a lot of room for interpretation of what the artist is feeling. Sure, the poem can impact the reader, but also it feels to me that poetry is one of the art forms that truly feels like you're kind of just laying your cards on the table because it's not like, oh yeah, if you squint hard enough, like the blacks and the grays represent this. And even then, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, you would have to go to the artist and say, hey, I noticed you're using some darker colors here. Does that represent anything? And then let them kind of tell you,
Yeah.
oh yeah. I mean, the poem in here about, I believe, your second-born son.
Yeah. Mangrove delivery.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of like, I wonder what the writer was feeling or processing in this moment. Is that scary? Is that is that a terrifying thing? Because or is it actually freeing because you know there's little margin for this to be misinterpreted. So I know that my heart, while God can take it and use it completely differently for the reader, but when I'm reading these and I don't know the rules of poetry that much. I don't know. So I'm going, oh wow, yeah, this is what Chelsea was feeling in this. Oh yeah, this is about her mother and her as a daughter. This is about her as a mother and her sons. Is that scary, liberating, both? Because again, poetry just feels like kind of that terrifying deal where you don't have any chords or melody to mask it. There's no the book is artistic in a way, but there's no like colors or abstract things that are kind of masking
it's not visually artistic.
Yeah, so it's like, here it is, boom, here's the poem, read it.
Right.
And it's like, that takes, from my perspective, that takes some courage.
Well, thank you. So I want to address some of the commentary about poetry first.
Yeah.
There's a lot of poetry that is very visual, that requires you paying attention to where a line ends and where a line begins.
Okay.
That when you look at, why did I not just put all of this in a running line, like a paragraph that is, poetic. The actual form, whether it's free verse where you're not following a predetermined form, or whether it is a specific form like a sonnet or a villanelle or a haiku or something, there is a structure that is underneath it. So there's a poem in here called matrescence, and matrescence, that I was introduced to that word after I had all three of my children, but it's a relatively new term that describes the coming of age into motherhood. There probably is a similar reality for fathers that you could call putrescence, right? That is incredibly different because mothers have this unique experience of bearing and delivering children. But gosh, I could sit here and go, what was it like becoming a dad?
No, you're the guest here, Chelsea.
Right,
Let's remember that.
Yeah. So there is like now people are looking at that whole transition. And so I wrote this poem called Matrescence, and I alluded to the fact that I had a surgery at 19 weeks. Well, the technical term for what's wrong with me is I have an incompetent cervix. So the part of my anatomy that it's supposed to stay shut to protect a growing fetus as it gets big and healthier and develops, mine doesn't stay shut. My door does not stay closed. And so this poem is, my first draft of this, I realized that I had subconsciously made every single stanza 9 lines. And they are 9 months in pregnancy. And I was talking with a friend, and 2 additional form ideas came out. One is, what if you said more and did 9 stanzas, which is what I eventually did. And what if you considered using the word incompetent as an acrostic at the beginning of every single line. And so if you go back and look at this poem, all of the initial letters on every single line are italicized. And if you read down the page, they spell incompetent, 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 incompetent over and over and over. Now the people I'm explaining this, you could look back and you can see it. But those are intentional form choices that if I read this out loud, you would not get, that you literally have to see on a page.
Yeah.
And so I agree with you that poetry is incredibly different from visual art. But there's and it's interesting that you said it seems like it's the most open. I don't disagree with you about that necessarily. I think that the best poetry, even if like you read Keats and you go, I have no idea what this guy said, you just need the keys to unlock it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you have those keys, you go, oh man, I know exactly what he's saying.
Yeah.
So there are poems that require some keys.
Yeah.
But once you have them, I agree that the poet at best is not obfuscating or avoiding truth or directness. They're actually unveiling something. And so now to answer your question, yeah, that's terrifying. It's a lot of what I used to write was very journalistic. I don't mean journalistic in journalism sense, but it was like I was writing a journal. It was me processing something or whatever. And there are definitely poems in here that you could say, yeah, it feels like that. But if I wasn't doing that, I was writing something that I wanted to be literature. Like I really wanted it to be deep and layered and all of this stuff. And I think that there are a lot of young poets that are trying too hard, and they mistake rigor and discipline in building a piece of art. That's true of any piece of art.
Yeah.
They mistake instead of rigor and discipline, they think complexity is rigor and discipline. And I think I was guilty of that for a really long time. And so, yeah, a poet does not want to keep you from the truth. They want to walk you straight into it. They want you to stare at it. And that feels pretty cool.
Yeah.
That feels pretty awesome. But again, as the daughter of artists and somebody, I love visual art. I lean, maybe this isn't surprising, I lean more towards non-representational work. And I think it's really poetic. And it's saying something that you can look at and see the exact same things, but your interpretation of it is going to intersect with your experiences in a way that is going to allow you to see a different truth or a different thing than maybe I would. I think poetry does the same thing, where you look at it and you're like, oh my word. I had a friend, I hope she doesn't mind my sharing this. I had a friend who told me that she was reading this book and she was just kind of going through, and she wasn't really necessarily looking at the titles. She was just kind of looking at the next poem. And it was really intersecting with work she was doing at the moment and with things she was feeling. She was like, what? Oh my word. Like it just kept hitting her. And she was like, what is this called? And she looked up and the title of the poem is her birth date.
Huh.
And she told me this and I was like, I mean, that's just God. Like I take zero credit for that. How else do you explain that?
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling to think that God would allow my words to serve other people in ways that I could not have possibly known. So, like you and I are friends. You know some of the context for some of this. And so you can see it really easily in certain places.
Yeah.
I've also had people read this who don't know my story, who haven't spent as much time, interacting with my family, and who read some of these and go, this is my husband. This is
Mm,
for, like, this is for me right now. This is what my experience was as a boy. Like, this is what it felt like to raise my kids. And that is um, something that I've said for a long time in my work in kind of a church and art space. And I really believe this, that God has a ministry for your work that has nothing to do with you.
mm,
That when you release a song or you release a book or you publish a poem or you put a painting in a gallery or you sell a painting to somebody else, your job is done. My job is to write and to share. And whatever happens after that is not my job. It's God's job. And he has a work for that. That is none of my business. And if I get crowns in heaven for it, there'll be a surprise. I'll show up and I'll go, Lord, what did I do? And he'll say, you gave a cup of cold. You wrote some words that I used.
Hmm.
Thank you for saying yes to my call to write and share. Thank you for saying yes to my call to put paint on a canvas
Yeah.
and put it on a wall in a space where somebody could see. Thank you for writing a song and letting other people listen to it. And that has been a lot easier for me to say to other artists than to swallow myself.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's part of the Christian life.
Yeah.
Really, that when God calls us to preach or he calls us to speak boldly about him to a work friend, or to just say that you believe in him.
Yeah.
That's the same kind of courage. It's not a different kind of courage. Following Jesus always requires courage.
Yeah.
It just sometimes looks like a painting or a book of poetry.
Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoyed part 1 of our conversation with Chelsea Fraser. Part 2 coming soon. If you would like to be notified exactly when that episode drops, subscribe to this podcast. And in the meantime, share this with a friend, share it on social media, and if you would be so kind, leave us a review, as that will further our impact and our reach of this podcast. Thank you so much.